Hello and welcome to Zestology. I'm Tony Wrighton, and this podcast is very much my quest for more energy and vitality and motivation, looking for things that can help us live with more energy, particularly appropriate in the deepest, darkest reaches of January. I'm in the park in central London near my house, and even though it is pretty cold, it's definitely the middle of winter, isn't it, at the moment, there are still people playing tennis, so fair play to them. Quite a good standard too. And I wanted to do a podcast in January at this time of the year on booze. I've had a kind of complicated relationship with booze recently. Over the years I've always probably been a bit of a party animal, and I'm probably a little bit less so now. Quite apart from anything else, I can't handle it anymore. Definitely a bit of a lightweight, and I don't want to drink as much anymore. But that gives rise to its own complications when you go out with your mates and everyone's having a great time and you're not. How do you deal with it? Do you resist? Do you feel bad, the fact that you used to be partying until 5 o'clock in the morning and now you're not? And I know that a lot of people who listen to Zestology kind of feel the same way. Maybe it's just getting a little bit older, a little bit more sensible, and maybe times are changing a little bit as well, and it's actually nice to wake up and feel good the next morning. Well, the reason it's worth doing this in January, obviously, is because we all overindulged in December, and a lot of people are doing dry January, and a lot of people are just cutting back, staying in a little bit more. I think this is, I don't know, the quietest weekend of the year at the moment or something like that. And, I think it's worth asking ourselves, if we did cut back on the booze, what would happen? In this podcast, you will hear that I've been tracking with the new Oura Ring, and some strange and horrifying statistics have been coming up on my sleep patterns when I have even a small amount of booze. So kind of carry on listening for that, but it's unbelievable. My heart rate variability, and my depth of sleep is completely altered after even just a couple of glasses of wine. And I didn't know that until I started sleeping with this ring on. It's crazy, isn't it? So that's my findings on booze. I haven't completely given it up, but I'm not far off. Today's guest is absolutely perfect for that, because he is Andy Ramage, former professional footballer who I knew him well when he was a player. Well, I didn't know him, but I followed his progress, even though he's kind of a lower league player here. And his life has taken some surprising, incredible and inspiring turns since he gave up professional football at actually quite a young age. And Andy now runs this website called 1 Year No Beer, and he doesn't drink anything himself. But I think what's cool about Andy is that he's a normal person as well. You know, he's still got a life and he's still doing lots of kind of normal things, and you think, yeah, I could do what Andy's doing and still be relatively normal, which would be quite nice. So if you are considering cutting back on the booze, maybe you're doing dry January, maybe you kind of know that you should cut back a bit, but you just haven't quite got round to it, or maybe you've already given up. Have a listen to Andy Ramage. Here he is on Zestology. Andy, how you doing?
Very good. Flying along.
Me too. Good. And I really wanted to do this at the start of January because I thought it'd be so appropriate for people who are doing dry January, or in some ways giving up booze after a heavy festive period. And I also wanted to talk to you about my story, but first of all, I want to hear all about yours, because you used to be a professional footballer, and in my job, it's my job to know ex-professional footballers who used to play for Gillingham and Leyton Orient, and I used to know all about you as a footballer. So what happened?
The classic sort of path. Left school at 16. I had that opportunity to go and play rugby and university and all those sort of things, and chose to go and play football for Leyton Orient, and it was truly the best experience of my life. I absolutely loved football. I still adore football. Was my absolute passion in life. I played professional for Leyton Orient and then later Gillingham until my early 20s, and unfortunately got injured, which was a bit of a shame, and my career was ended. Prematurely, let's say. But I ended up in Ireland, funnily enough, at that stage, because my career was starting where I was injured. I was struggling a bit. And I went over there with a guy called, well, as you know, Laurie Sanchez, who the ex-Wimbledon,
yes,
a crazy gang guy. played a bit in Ireland, but I was pretty much finished at that stage, and then had a jolly old time running around Ireland for about 5 years after that, enjoying myself.
When was that, by the way?
So that was what? So what am I, 40? So that's about 20 years ago now. Yeah, 20 years ago.
Because I lived over there in the year 2000 and 2001. I was doing the breakfast show at Atlantic 252, which was just north of Dublin, and I had a pretty jolly old time as well in the island, I must say.
Oh, it's a beautiful place. I absolutely fell in love with it over there. My wife now, I married an Irish girl in the end. She's from Kildare and Naas. So yeah, I'm backwards and forwards the whole time.
So you're over there. That's the kind of what happened, because you're still quite young at this point.
Yeah, so I'm 22, 23.
Why was the football going downhill?
Just due to injury. So I basically tore, it's such a silly injury. I tore my cartilage, but I played on it for a full season, which obviously you should never do. It's such a simple injury to get fixed. But basically what would happen is I just couldn't train or play consistently because my knee would just swell up like a balloon. I was having it drained. I was having it injected. I was having everything you could think of. So it just didn't allow me to play. And I was all about running around a lot, tackling a lot, and giving it to the good players. So once that started to come out of my game, I couldn't physically do it. It was a one-way ticket, really. And then 2 years later, that was it. I just had to retire completely.
Right. So what did you mean by running around Ireland having fun? Were you just kind of going off the rails a bit because you were a young man who'd been used to the kind of adrenaline buzz of playing in front of big crowds and you didn't know what to do with yourself?
Oh, yeah. And I loved Ireland. I loved, and back then it was all about playing a bit of football, meeting some girls, having a few drinks. As a young man, I just loved it. We had a house between the footballers. There was about 6 of us, all ex-pros from the UK. Mark Kelly was one of them, who was one of the youngest ever internationals for Ireland. Ian Gilzine, the Grey Fox's son, and a guy called Brendan Aspinall, and we just had a whale of a time. It was like being students but playing football and getting paid for it. It was perfect.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like the perfect way to set up a lovely life, except for the fact that you'd had to retire at the same time.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, again, it was just one of those things in life. But because it was a slow death in many ways, it wasn't that short shot of a one-off injury that put me out. It just happened over time, and I started to build a different life around that. I went back to university when I was in Coleraine to study IT. So I'd started to build this new life for myself anyway. So it was a gradual process, really, in the end. And
so then trace out the journey from retiring as a footballer, going back to university, carving out a new life, and now you've got quite a few, because it's not just, you don't just do 1 year no beer, which by the way I think is great. I think it's great when people have more than one string to their bow, and you've got loads going on now, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, so what happened after the football career? I went travelling with my now wife, went all around the world, ended up Australia, I did all that sort of stuff, and again had a great time. I came back to the UK and fell into oil broking, funnily enough, and set up a big business in the oil broking world. 5 years ago, I set up co-founded my own sort of franchise called Alpha Energy in the oil broking space, and then as part of that process, it was a very social environment that I was involved in, huge entertaining, lots of alcohol going on. That was the way I socialized as well. I reached a point where I thought, do you know what, I think I've had enough of this. I think I want to be fitter, faster. I want more energy. I want more vitality in my life. And I started to look at lots of different things. I started to look at meditation. I started to look at exercise, my diet. And I never really questioned the alcohol thing. Never once did I question alcohol because it was so ingrained in my life. Like the thoughts of ever taking it away just wasn't an option. And then it was sort of one of those moments where I thought, right at the end, maybe I can't see the wood for the trees. Maybe the thing that I need to actually address is the alcohol. And again, there was no problem, no rock bottom. I just wanted to be fitter, faster, better at my job and all those things. And I took a break from alcohol and everything changed. It was huge. No way. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely huge. For me, considering, again, running an oil brokerage, you couldn't be in a more boozy industry if you possibly tried. Although subsequently, I found out that most industries are pretty boozy, to be fair. It seems like it's pretty ubiquitous everywhere. But when I took it out, I just thought, right, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to do 4 weeks, see what happens. And everyone, I got slaughtered by everyone, if you can imagine. All my mates, all the lads at work were like, you'll never do it. It's not going to happen. Of course, I did 2 weeks, slipped up. Everyone laughed, pointed the fingers and said, no, we knew you'd never do it, Ramo. But it actually pissed me off a bit, I must admit. I thought, I'm going to keep coming back. I'm going to do this. And I got to 3 weeks, and I'll never forget it, waking up on a Saturday morning. My eyes were bright. The kids were in love with me. I was in love with the wife. I felt brilliant. I was like, hold on, maybe there's a bit more to this than meets the eyes. So I just kept going. 4 weeks became 2 months, became 3 months. And during that period, I lost 3 stone in weight, would you believe?
No way.
Yeah, my body fat went from 30% down to below 10, where it is today. I was like, by the end of it, I was in better shape than when I was playing professional football. All those myths that everyone was telling me, your business, I was told point blank, my business would suffer, if not fail, if I stopped drinking, because that's the sort of industry we're in. It was absolutely booming. I'd set up this new business and we're taking it from 4 of us. We're up to now 30 brokers, one of the most successful brokerages in the city of London. And I did all of that without drinking. I went back to university, as mentioned, finished a degree, finished a master's degree. And I just felt bloody great. My relationships were thriving. All the things that people had told me that wouldn't happen if I stopped drinking happened in such a positive way that I was just inspired. And I thought, I want to share it. You know, something builds up in your chest. You're like, I think this is really good. I want to share it. I don't want to preach. I don't want to be one of those people that says you need to do this. I just want to try and lead by example. So I wrote a little ebook, partnered up with a guy called Rui Fairbairns, and we co-founded the movement called 1 Year No Beer. And that sort of brings us a bit up to date.
Wow, what a great story. And I mean, I knew about you all those years ago as a footballer. I knew instantly when we started talking today, I was like, he can't be the same Andy Ramage as the footballer. And to hear everything that you've achieved since, I mean, it does sound like you were on the path to being quite a high achiever before you gave up the booze.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was that sort of realization that I've achieved a lot. I've got a lovely job, lovely family, all these things. But I was sort of that 6 out of 10. I just wanted to go after the 8s and 9s. I wanted more. I wanted my cake and to eat it, essentially. And it was definitely taking the alcohol out the equation that unlocked all the other wellness goodies, from meditation to exercise to better nutrition and to better relationships. And I think that's huge.
And for you, and also just like getting in shape as well.
Oh, massive. I wanted to get fit again. Carrying around I never thought I was 3 stone overweight. And I weigh now, I'm about 12 and a bit stone now. My fighting weight when I was playing football was 12 stone 10. So I'm below. I never thought I'd see my sort of old fighting weight again at 12.10. And I went through it and stopped around sort of 12.4. So it just shows you I was probably a bit heavy when I was playing football, in truth.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. I was out with some of my Sky colleagues last night, actually, and it was quite a boozy night. And I went through something a little bit. I haven't given up booze, but I've drastically cut down. And one of the reasons I cut down is because I can't handle it anymore. I literally just can't handle the amount of booze that I used to. But I used to kind of quite fancy myself as somebody who liked a really good night out. And one of the things that I've found hard, and I think a lot of people who would be considering giving up booze or maybe even doing it, is the fact that you feel a bit boring. And for me, it got to about, we kind of met mid-afternoon yesterday, Sunday afternoon, me and my colleagues, and it got to kind of about 9:30. And some of them you could tell were just getting into the swing of things a little bit. It was just starting to get a bit rowdy. And I was like, right, lads, I'm off. See you later. And, bless them, a couple of my mates were kind of like, oh, mate, not yet, come on. And there's that kind of feeling, which I find hard to get rid of feeling a bit boring because you're going home. Do you feel that as well?
Yeah, that's a huge, I think, again, a myth that surrounds alcohol, that you need it to be fun and all these things, because very much what we do at 1 Year No Beer, and in our book, actually, I didn't mention the book, we've got a book that comes out on the 28th of December, so it would be out by the time that this is on, but the 28-day alcohol-free challenge, we talk a lot about in there about being even more sociable, because there is that boring myth around alcohol. But when you actually think about it and you break it down, you do so much fun stuff outside of the obvious social nights in the pub with the lads anyway.
Yeah.
But what we recommend is go and have a great time, but just swap out the alcohol for alcohol-free, for example. So I drink loads of non-alcoholic beer, for example, at the moment.
Yeah.
So you're still part of the lads. You get that placebo effect of holding something that looks like a beer. It tastes delicious. I mean, they're outstanding now, the alcohol-free options. Plus, you get to be with the lads. You get that social company. You have a bit of banter, but a bit like you did, you duck out when it starts to maybe get a bit messy in those latter stages of the evening. So you keep the fun. And the great thing is when you wake up the next day full of energy, full of zest, you go out and be even more sociable the next day. Maybe you go for a run, maybe you go for a bike ride, maybe you go and see people. So you're putting the fun back into your life rather than taking it out. So I think it's anything but boring. Again, but I understand that boring tag, but I think it's so easily pinned on to someone who doesn't drink, when the truth is, if you look at our alcohol-free movement and my own life, it's anything but boring.
Yeah. And I agree. And when you put it like that, it makes me think, yeah, no, it is actually great. And then the next day you go and do something else cool. And there's plenty of things, exciting things that don't involve alcohol. And yet there's still that kind of, when you identify as someone who's a lot of fun and goes out and has a wild time, it takes some letting go of, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that was my hardest bit for me, right? Because I built this big persona. I was the first in, last out the bar type of guy. I built a big business around being that man, the guy that holds court in the pub, that entertains, and that meant drinking. So for me, taking that away was a huge wrench at the time. I was genuinely concerned for my business, genuinely concerned for my marriage even. It's like you think, hold on, is your wife still going to love you if you're suddenly not fun time Andy after 5 pints or whatever it is? So I must admit I was worried about it, but it's still the best decision I've ever made times 10, because actually what you realize, one, you become your authentic self. So maybe I'm not like holding court so much in the bar anymore, but I'm the real me, which is so much more powerful than any, false booze cloak that
is
alcohol
such a
was
good
offering
point.
me.
Yeah, that's really, really important point.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we discovered time and time again, that people actually revert back to their authentic selves. My co-founder, Rory Fairbairns, is a complete nut job. With or with alcohol, we've realised he doesn't need it. He is still the last man standing. He's leading the charge 2 a.m. without a drop of alcohol. Whereas actually I realised without the booze, that wasn't so much me, if you know what I mean. I quite enjoyed, reading and writing and doing different things. So my tastes have changed massively, but for the right reasons. And I skip all that horrible lethargy and regret and hangovers and all the other stuff that comes with it, that was like a bit like you, was taking me out for days on end. And when you've got a young family, like, life's too short to be wasted, on hangovers. I've been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt. It was time to do something completely different.
And I know from having listened to some of your podcasts and read some of your stuff online, one of the things you talk about quite a bit with your kind of community, and by the way, it's getting quite a big community, I want to ask you about that in a second, is slip-ups. And when you slip up, it's not the end of the world, it's not a reason to give it all up. And it's interesting that you told me about your story and how you slipped up after a couple of weeks and all your mates was like, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's a big part of this. When you've been, socially and psychologically conditioned to do this thing for so long, like, slip-ups happen. It's almost a case of, so what? Learn from your mistake and come back stronger. It certainly doesn't mean your challenge is blown. The way I look at it, if someone gets to 90 days, maybe they've been drinking, every other day, they get to 90 days with 1 slip-up or 2 slip-ups, that's still amazing, right? That's like, it's like 43 days of not drinking alcohol to get them to the halfway point, and then they go again. I mean, it's frightening. It's definitely the way to do it. And a quick story of what would happen to me, and this is so true. I'd enter a bar knowing that I'm definitely having a non-alcoholic alternative, sparkling water, for example. I'd get closer to the bar, I'd smell the crisps, feel the ambiance, the clatter of glasses, and someone would bark those immortal words through the crowd, "What do you want to drink?" And I'd respond, "Pint of lager." I cannot tell you how many times that happened to me, right? It just almost, you just go onto this autopilot where you just slip into these old routines.
Yeah.
So again, it's very much about giving people the skills and the techniques just to deal with those moments. It's not the end of the world. If you find yourself buying a drink or someone buys you a drink, you don't have to drink it. Alcohol never goes to waste, as we say, and you can just buy yourself what you really want. And
over Christmas, I've seen quite a few of the Budweiser Prohibition Brew adverts. It's clear that it's really, I think there's a bit of a change going on. It's genuinely becoming more socially acceptable in this, which sounds bonkers, doesn't it? But that's just the way that our culture is. It is more socially acceptable now, I think, to drink a Prohibition brew, for example.
Oh, completely. Like, for example, my litmus test is my brokers or the brokerage. 5 years ago, if I'd gone to an event and said I wasn't drinking, I would have got loads of rubber arm twisting, I can't believe you're not drinking, all the usual stuff that lads would do. Fast forward this year, we just had a big event in the Ned there in London. We had 50 odd people there. And I looked around and there was probably 5 or 6 people on Nanny State, which is a non-alcoholic beer, which I love. Right, you'd never see that. No one, obviously people know me for one, beer and what now, but no one batted an eyelid. No one's going up to those people going, why are you not drinking? And in fact, two of the top hedge fund managers, and this is the real big signal for me. So this is like the elite in terms of the trading world. They weren't drinking. Both of them were not drinking. And that's what I'm saying. Look at the top sports people. Look at the top hedge fund managers, the top entrepreneurs, the people that are being uber successful. They've worked it out. They've worked it out ahead of the game that actually there's no place for alcohol if you want to be at the peak performance and the top of your game.
There's a certain kind of glamour involved with partying. And I was thinking of The Wolf of Wall Street, because, you talk about kind of financial worlds and partying and going off the rails. And that is obviously a hilarious film. And for much of that film, it seems like they're having a lot of fun. It's almost a bit disappointing to think of the Leonardo DiCaprio depicted in that film, teetotal, going back faithfully to his wife every night at 6:00 and playing with the kids. But it's probably a recipe for much more balance.
Exactly. It wouldn't be much of a film, I don't think, if you did that. You're right. We need these extremes. I don't think the extremes are going away, if you know what I mean. Again, look at my microclimate around broken. It is changing. But I think there's always going to be excess. And I think there's a natural urge towards intoxication. There is. I've started to study the history of this stuff because I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever going to go away. I mean, they talk about it being our fourth drive. I think what's going to happen, though, a lot of the mindless drinking is going to go. That just wine o'clock, let's just go home for a stressful day, good day, bad day, celebration, commiseration. Let's just drink all the time without thinking. I think over the next few years, people will stop a lot of that. They'll cut out a lot of the mindless stuff, and maybe they will have selective days where they go, right, it's a proper knees up today. It's a wedding. It's a birthday. It's Christmas. I'm going for it. I know it's going to write me off for the next few days and I'm going to feel awful, but it's strategic rather than this constant mindless drinking.
I'm absolutely loving this. And it's funny because I really did think we had our Christmas party last night, and I really did think exactly that. So it's so interesting to get some perspective on it from you.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's so many sort of men and women in the same boat. They're just starting to toy with the idea of maybe this is not, or maybe I've been there, seen it, done it. Maybe there's a time to try something a bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Okay, we're all good with the levels. Okay, so just carrying on recording. So what kind of categories of people are there who might be looking at getting into this? Because it seems like, 1 year no beer seems like quite a lot. And I think there's some of my friends who know they should cut down but don't really want to cut down because they actually just enjoy the boozing. Some of my friends don't want to cut down at all and don't think they need to cut down. And some do. So are those the kind of similar categories that you find that come to you guys?
Yeah, it's a real mixture. And again, although the site is called 1 Year No Beer, it's named after our original challenge, which was a year. But we offer on the site a 28-day challenge, a 90-day challenge, which is the most popular. And then, lots of people bat on to the year. So we get an absolute mixture of people. And another thing to bear in mind is even if you don't drink a lot, we know the science is there that alcohol destroys your sleep. You don't get that deep restorative sleep that you do when you're not drinking. And we know there's tons of science around the fact that poor sleep leads to underperformance, poor motivation, lack of productivity. So even if you don't drink a lot, it is having an impact on you, even if you're not suffering those like obvious hangover type symptoms, if you know what I mean. So it's a real mixture. Again, we've got people that don't drink very much that want to come in and just do it as a challenge, like a Tough Muddery type thing, another box ticked. They might do 28 days. And then we've got all the way through to those people that drink quite a lot that would classically maybe tick the sort of problem, let's say, box, but want to try a stigma-free, alcohol-free adventure. So we've got the full broad range, I think, of people that drink from very infrequently to very frequently.
Just on the sleep thing, have you heard of a tracking device called the Oura Ring?
No.
It's spelled Oura. And I've been testing it out for the last few days. It's a ring you wear on your finger, and it tracks during the day. It tracks your exercise and so on, and it tracks your sleep at night. But it's quite advanced because it reads things like body temperature, resting heart rate, and heart rate variability as well.
Brilliant.
And so since I've been tracking it, I've had 2 nights where I've drunk, and not that much. As I said, I can't handle that much. But both of those nights, my resting heart rate has been way higher than the rest of the time. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and we did a thing called First Beat, which a lot of the rugby players use, which is where they're wired up the heart rate monitor. You wear it for about 10 days. I did it. It was fascinating. And obviously I don't drink, so my recovery and my sleep was amazing. We put a top trader, city trader, through the same process, and he had problems with sleep forever. And actually he thought the way he dealt with his sleep problem was to drink. That was how he went to sleep. He thought, I've got to sleep because I've got to drink, otherwise I won't sleep properly. Yeah. He wore this monitor, changed his life, changed his world. Really? For the first time ever, he realised, even after, I think on one of the nights he had like 2 pints, it was nothing exceptional, and he could see it in like the stats. His sleep was just destroyed from these 2 pints. He wasn't getting that deep restorative sleep, and it was such a graphic example to him. It completely transformed his world. He went on to do 90 days, and now he does drink again, but very, very occasionally. Yeah. So there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. That's what we keep saying. It's not just about those obvious hangovers and the nausea. It's about being productive. It's about being on the ball. It's about being motivated. And that was the difference for me. When I lost all the weight, it wasn't because I just ditched all the calories from not drinking alcohol. It's because I wasn't waking up the next day feeling like shite, basically, and didn't have the energy to train. So all of a sudden I was training. I wasn't flaking on the gym sessions. My diet then changed because I wasn't craving the hangover stodge food. So it's all these little knock-on effects that just have a massive difference. Tempers are less frayed, so your relationships at home get better. And because you're more energized and motivated, I was doing much more business. I was making more phone calls when everyone else was asleep on a Friday morning. So it's a huge knock-on effect from this one simple change. Yeah,
and just on that Oura Ring, it's very advanced tracking, and it's last night. And bearing in mind I didn't have that much to drink, but I was in the pub for a few hours with them. 10 minutes of deep sleep.
Really?
And the night before, 1 hour 26 of deep sleep. So incredible difference.
Yeah. I mean, all these things are just add up and multiply. And I think a lot of people get into their 30s and 40s and just feel that they're meant to be a little bit tired all the time, and a little bit lethargic and a little bit undermotivated. And that's what I thought. And then again, that's, I'm sort of overhyping it in some ways because I'm really passionate about it. You stop drinking and suddenly you feel great again because you get that hour and 10 minutes deep sleep instead of the 10 minutes. And when you multiply that over the days and weeks, it makes a huge difference.
That's really awesome. So we've already spoken about how you inspire people who kind of might have dropped off the wagon to kind of clamber back on it again, and inspire people who might have had a little slip up. What are the other things that you try to do to kind of motivate people? And why did you set it up? Because actually, if you've got this successful business going on with the oil trading, which I don't really understand what it is, but it sounds pretty hardcore, why do all this stuff on the side as well?
I think because I had this personal transformation, as it were, I just wanted to share. I was sort of saying there was that like burning, I don't know, in my chest. I just wanted to share it with someone. So originally we just put a little e-booklet up on the web and created a little website called One No Beer, just for something to do, if you know what I mean, as a way to maybe give back a little bit and help. And it was all going to just give it all away for free. And then it just took off. It got downloaded within a couple of months about 10,000 times in over 61 countries and all this crazy stuff. And we just went, wow, there's clearly a real demand for this. And then it just snowballed from there. It just started to sort of take over my life in many ways. I was like, all right, maybe we can help more people. Maybe we can structure it this way. Maybe we can build courses. And we went on to do all these different things around it. And it's just blossomed and grown to the point that now I'm actually on a 6-month sabbatical from my You're Broken. Wow. Yeah, exactly. So I got together. There's an owner. There's me. Then there's the owner, a guy called Joe Kelly, who's a great guy. I sat him down just recently, and with the launch of the book coming up, I almost couldn't do two things. It was just getting to the point I was going to get burnt out. So we sat down and said, right, let's take 6 months off, go and promote the book, promote One Beer, try and get it in front of as many people as you can, and then I'll go back in 6 months and we'll have another chat and see what I want to do going forward. So yeah, it's taken over my life. Let's say that much.
Yeah. So you've got an owner who kind of helps run it for you, and I mean, it sounds like this is a proper business now, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's part of OTC Global Holdings, which is the largest independent commodities brokerage in the world across like London and the US. And I run basically a franchise within that called Alpha Energy. So the guy who owns the big ship is a guy called Joe Kelly.
Wow.
So it's a big deal. I mean, I went there 4 years ago. There was 4 of us. We've now got 30 brokers in Houston, New York, London, Singapore, the whole shebang. So whilst doing that, I managed to have the time to study, write the book, do the movement. But the only reason any of that exists is because I wasn't drinking. I mean, it just couldn't physically exist. I just wouldn't have the time to get up at 5 o'clock and do all this stuff and all the energy to still exercise and do all that other stuff. If I was drinking, it's just a fact. And actually, just on that note, while I'm on a roll, one of the main reasons I stopped was because I knew I had to set this business up. Yeah. And I knew I couldn't do it if I was hungover or unmotivated or unproductive. I just had to give it my all. So that was one of the big reasons that I stopped drinking, even though everyone in my industry was saying, you can't stop drinking because you'll lose all your clients, which was complete nonsense.
Yeah. Wow. Did you find, one of the things I always found about boozing is when I boozed a lot, and especially beer, it didn't really agree with my gut either. Is that something that you found as well?
Yeah, I mean, we've had so many good health benefits. Rory, actually, the co-founder, was another interesting one. He suffered with IBS for years and years and years and never went to get it checked out because he was sort of undermotivated and all those things because he was drinking a lot. He just always blamed it on alcohol. And it wasn't until he stopped drinking and he did his year off that actually the symptoms were still there. And then he went to get checked out and he worked out he was glucose intolerant.
Right.
And yeah, exactly. And changed, again, his life, something that he'd suffered with all his life. It blamed on the booze. And it wasn't until he actually took a break, ironically, he discovered that it wasn't the booze, but it put him in a position to deal with it.
Wow.
Lactose intolerant,
so, Lactose, not glucose, I was going to say. Right, okay. Wow, interesting. And are you finding, do you think this is something that is increasingly gaining? I mean, obviously, you and I come from a kind of sporting world, and all of a sudden we're operating in a different world, which is kind of more personal development. And one of the things I love about my very privileged position at Sky is I feel like maybe someone who sits on the sofa with a beer might come and just give my podcast a try, and it might be for him or it might not be. And then there are other people who come from all different worlds, from yoga to meditation to whatever. Do you think this is increasingly something which is kind of going mainstream? Is that something that you feel?
Oh, absolutely. Again, just the litmus test recently of the top, city hedge fund guys not drinking. You're seeing it from sort of sports stars, entrepreneurs, athletes. It's really starting to gain momentum. But I work with the PFA as well. The PFA are fully behind this, and the Professional Footballers Association have been fantastic. Support One, beer. But even when I sat down with them and had the conversation, I said, right, how many footballers can you tell me that don't drink? This would be great.
Yeah.
And it was like blank faces, I can't really name many, but I know when I talk to people, in the game still, they're all telling me, especially with the influx of foreign players, that most of the players now don't drink or drink very, very little. Of course, there's always the headline, and you had some stuff with Wayne Rooney and whatnot recently, but that's the absolute exception rather than the norm.
I'm still not sure I believe that, Andy.
Yeah, apparently so. That's what
I can believe the foreign players because they bring a whole different mentality, and even the kind of European foreign players. I can just imagine the Italians. They're sitting with a couple of glasses of nice wine and looking at the Brits guzzling 10 pints, kind of thing.
Yeah, I know, and you're right. It's a tricky one because I'm really trying to get a few more of these players to come forward that are not drinking. Again, this is my point. Like, you hear about all the lads that do drink, but you never hear the stories about the ones that don't. If you know what I mean. And I think that's what's starting to change. Anyway, I'll say that much, that the stories are starting to leak out about those that don't drink, for example.
Yeah.
In a positive light rather than always the negative.
And do you find? You're obviously very busy now. You're running 2 businesses. But you've got the kind of energy to cope with setting up, as well as the oil stuff, which you told us about. 1 Year No Beer. This is a proper business now as well, isn't it? And you've got a pretty fancy looking website, which I've been having a look at over the last few days. You've got enough energy to look after all of that now.
Oh, completely. And again, the 1 Year No Beer is a business now. As you say, originally we were going to give it away for free. We just said, let's just put this out into the world and do it as a side thing. And then it was burning such a hole in both our pockets. We were like, oh, hold on, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
This is not sustainable. Maybe we do the charity thing. Then we took some advice and actually worked out the best way to do it is to create it as a company and try and actually do some good in the world by creating a business, use all the skills that we've picked up from running things in the city and all our energy and motivation to actually try and give back through creating a business. And yourself, if you can generate some income around this, then it helps advertise and it helps market and it helps actually get your word and do what you do and make it even better and help more and more people. And the dream is maybe one day we can do it full time. Again, this is all sort of in the pipeline, but yeah, very much so now. It's about trying to create something to do good in the world.
That's brilliant. And you're doing a podcast as well, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Which I've been enjoying. It's great, the podcast. Yeah,
exactly. And we've just restarted it again, so I'll have to get you on our show if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'd love to come on. I was actually listening to it and I just thought, do you know what? Straight away I thought, I like these two guys, like straight away, which I very rarely think. I'm a bit of a stickler for good podcasts. So yeah, I really liked it and you're both very likable. So I'd love to come on. Really love to.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so we're just starting again. We've got some great people on there, like Rich Roll and all sorts of people. The guy who created Spartan, who's another ex-broker. Rui, my co-founder, was there in Iceland at the weekend at the, I don't know if you've been involved in it.
I saw that at the blog.
Stuff.
It was a Spartan, I don't really know what it is, but I saw that on your blog.
Yeah, it's like they're like the sort of top end, not Tough Mudders. They're like, those sort of type of challenge or assault course type challenges in Iceland. Hardcore stuff, real like elite type athletes go and do this stuff now. So yeah, he's just gone and smashed out one of those with and his wife Jen, who's amazing. She came first in her category and 6th overall. How cool is that?
That's amazing. That is incredible because it sounds like a hellish
race. It's hardcore.
Yeah. So there's no going back for you now, and presumably there's no more slip ups either.
No. So I mean, my last sort of drink was about 4 years ago, February, and I always know roughly when, I'm not one of these that keeps birthdays or anniversaries of it. It's just not on my radar anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, I don't even have to think about it, but I know roughly when it is because we have a big boozy week in February in my industry, in the oil industry, called IP Week, International Petroleum Week. Clients from all over the world come to London. It's about meeting people, but obviously there's lots of entertaining and alcohol involved. And it was at the end of that 4 years ago, I just went, nah, never again. That's it. I've had enough. I'm out. Life's too short for hangovers and lethargy and regret. I want to do something different in my life. And that was it 4 years ago. Yeah, I haven't looked back since.
Brilliant. What would you say to people? This is going out on Zestology in January, but not right on the first day of January. So what would you say to someone who's been a little bit interested by what you've had to say? They've heard you talk about sleep and they've maybe been slightly concerned at the fact my resting heart rate is a lot higher after I've had a couple of glasses of wine. But they've not started from the 1st of January with giving up the booze. So maybe it's just a bit late. You know what I mean? Like it's the middle of January now and they're listening and they're like, well, I've missed the boat now. What would you say to them?
Do you know what? There's never a perfect time to start. So you might as well just get started straight away. And, we set up One Beer and we thought, it's going to be one of these things that's busy in Jan and then not a lot of action throughout the rest of the year. It is solidly busy the right way through the year.
Is it?
Oh, yeah, amazingly so. Actually, the quietest month is December, which is understandable.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much solid the whole way through Jan, all the other months, because people just come to this and there's never the perfect time to start. There's always going to be that stag do, wedding, birthday, work's not out on the horizon. But that's actually one of the best reasons to start this challenge, because when you actually go to your first big night out and you don't drink and you prove to yourself that you can still have a great time socially, skip all the hangovers, that's a massive win. And that's what we're about. It's just like, come and do 28 days, test yourself, see if you feel fitter, faster, healthier, and all these great things that I'm talking about come flooding back to you. If they do, you end up building this vibrant lifestyle that the thoughts of going back to hangovers and all that nonsense, it's just not an option. And then actually, you'll hear us talk about this in the book and on the course all the time. It's about creating this mindset shift of having this first-hand experience of life without alcohol. And then you realize there's nothing to give up and everything to gain. Then it just gets easy after that. So I would say to anyone, you just start like day one, whatever day you come across this or you fancy it, just start day one, make it happen, do 28 days and see how you feel. That's all it is.
Yeah. Do you get quite a few women coming to you as well?
Yeah, it's our demographic's 50-50.
Yeah.
Pretty
Brilliant.
much like on the nose, 50-50. And again, I think women like the challenge aspect to it. And the reason we set it up as a challenge, and the book has mentioned the 28-day alcohol-free challenge, we've created that, is because it gives you a bit of an excuse. I mean, giving up alcohol is probably one of the only drugs in the world, let's not dress it up. When you try and give it up, you often get slaughtered for it.
Yeah.
You know, rubber arms twisted. I mean, isn't it? If you went and said, I'm not smoking, people would go, right on, fantastic.
Yeah.
Go into your average group of guys and say, I'm not drinking, you're going to have to put up with a barrage of abuse for the next 10 minutes. So we like the challenge idea because you can say, look, I'm on a challenge. It has a start, it has an end. So your drinking buddies don't get as upset if they think, hold on, he's only doing this for 28 days, then he'll be back. But what we know is this, which is really interesting, 85% of our members, when they get to 90 days, 85% carry on with their challenge. Because they've obviously had this transformation, why would they go back? So they keep going. But on that note, it's not about giving up forever. I've decided I'm not going to drink again because it does zero zilch for me. Rory, the other co-founder, did 2 years alcohol-free, and he now occasionally, in full control, has a drink every now and again. But he's in control. That's the key. And to regain that control, I think you need to take a decent break. That's why it's important to do your 28 days or do your 90 days and then reassess.
That's brilliant. Now, something I ask everyone on Zestology is, what is one book you'd recommend and one tip for living with more energy, vitality and motivation? And this podcast being all about living with a little bit more zest. And I feel like that everything we've spoken about is living with more energy, actually, giving up the booze and living with more energy. So I've got a feeling that I might know what your tip for living with more energy is. But let's start with the book. What is one book that you can be anything at all? It can be fiction, non-fiction, anything you like.
Do you know, I'm a massive reader. I'm just looking behind at my library of books. Excellent. Almost.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go a bit different. I'm going to go with a guy called Seneca, who's a philosopher, Stoic philosopher. His book is called On the Shortness of Life. It is a short book as well. It will blow your mind. If you don't know about this guy, he's a Stoic philosopher, as mentioned. Read as much Seneca as you can. He is amazing. So On the Shortness of Life by Seneca.
Andy, as a former footballer, you are full of surprises.
It's not really alcohol free. Do you know what? As well, my diet's now vegan, so I'm like going for the world's smallest minority. Sorry, vegan, alcohol free, ex-footballer who reads philosophy.
Seneca. Brilliant.
Ginger as well. So yes, we're even we've narrowed in the minority even more.
Okay, and then what's the tip? What's the tip, Andy? I wonder.
Yes. Go alcohol free. Just give it a shot. It is the one that will unlock everything else. Your diet, your exercise, your mindfulness, your mental health. Just go alcohol free. Just give it a go. What have you got to lose?
Great stuff. I've really loved talking to you. I thought I would, and I have. And it's been so good chatting to you, Andy. And I think you're doing brilliant work. I really do. So thank you for coming on Zestology. Where can people find out more about what you do?
So oneyearnobeer.com is the main website. And if you search the 28-day alcohol-free challenge in Google, you'll find it everywhere, Amazon, on the usual places. And then me personally, Andy Ramage AF on Instagram is what I'm playing around with at the moment.
Okay, fantastic. Andy, you're doing good work. Keep it up. And thank you for coming on Zestology.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks to Andy. One of the most inspiring interviews I've done in a while. Very inspired to not go and booze my weekend evenings away after chatting to him. And as I stroll around this park in central London on a pretty chilly day, I must admit that, it feels good to kind of feel healthy and good in the middle of the day rather than battling a hangover. Obviously, he's at 1 Year No Beer if you want to follow Andy and find out more. I've got a feeling that we spoke afterwards, and I'm definitely going to be on his podcast at some point soon. And as always, thank you for listening to Zestology. Now, some very exciting news regarding the Zestology Book Club. If you might well be a member of the Zestology Book Club already. This is growing quickish. But it's just a bit of a passion of mine because I love books, and the more that I can chat to other people who like reading every once in a while, the more we can share some good stuff, because I think the only way to find good books is by getting recommendations, and there's nothing worse than thinking, well, what am I going to read now? I don't know. So there's a kind of a collation of some really good ideas on the Zestology Book Club on Facebook. And now you can add your friends on the Zestology Book Club. So if you've got other mates who like books, you can simply, if you haven't joined already yourself, join. And then add whoever you'd like to add. You just type their name in the box and you can add them as well. If they don't want to be a part of it, they can unadd themselves. But I think it's quite a nice idea then, because your book-loving mates might like some ideas on what to read as well. And you can head over to the just type in Zestology Book Club on Facebook and you'll find it, and you can join the book club, and yeah, be good to see you there. That is pretty much it. I think next week, not absolutely certain, but I think next week is one of the biggest interviews that we've had on Zestology. I can't confirm it until it comes out, because it's subject to speaking to certain people and getting permissions and this, that and the other. But here's hoping. Also, I'm going on my travels and I will be in Asia for the next few weeks. And I'll be recording a couple of podcasts from there as well. So big interviews coming up, which I'm excited about, and big travels, which I'm really looking forward to a chance to reflect and unwind and have loads of fun as well and learn a bit too. So I'll record podcasts from there, and in the meantime, if you want to add your friends to the Zestology Book Club, you can. As always, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.